welcome to the Marina Skua Podcast. This is episode 14 and it's September, which here in the UK means that it's drawing towards the end of summer, which puts me in that weird place of being slightly melancholy that the summer's going to be over soon, but also quite excited about upcoming autumn and all of the cozy knits and amazing colours that brings. Having said that, at the moment the weather is incredible. We've got some gorgeous sunny days. The garden is looking amazing. I'm going to be showing you around the garden towards the end of the episode because it's been a while since I did an update and quite a lot has changed. So if you've not watched before, you might want to go back a few episodes and watch there so you can see what I was planning, because I have managed to do quite a few of the things I was hoping to, so it's looking really nice. Also in this episode I'm going to be talking about new stuff in the shop, things that I have finished knitting and am still working on, as well as the process I use for using salt to extract pigment from woad. So that'll be a bit later on. But if I start off with finished objects, first one is the one I am wearing, which is the jumper I've been knitting out of hand-spun blue-faced Leicester yarn and my grey Mendip 4-ply yarn. Really pleased it's finally finished because it's the perfect time to start wearing it, and I am so pleased with it. It fits beautifully. It's really cozy, it's not too heavy or anything. I'm quite a fan of how the raglan lines have worked out. It looks really nice with a collared shirt, which I wear a lot of. And I'm actually really surprised because I knit the sleeves first so that they would be long enough, because I only had 100 grams of the hand-spun yarn. And then I was just going to carry on knitting the body until I ran out. And I was expecting it to come to here or something. Which I would have been fine with, a little cropped one, but it's actually turned out to be the perfect hip length jumper, which is lovely because it's that little bit of extra warmth, and it means that I can wear it with more things rather than having to wear it only with high-waisted stuff. So that's quite exciting. Project details are on previous episodes where I talk a bit more about what I'm doing, and I will link to my Ravelry project below. Next up is, now this one I actually showed quite a few episodes ago because I finished it a long time ago, at the beginning of summer when it wasn't remotely necessary. It's this hat, which I am calling the woad hat. Woad is Old English for weed because it has these little plantlets growing on it. And to me they look a bit like the willow herb that we get a lot of growing around here. And so this, I'm showing it to you now because I finally got round to writing up the pattern, drawing the chart out properly and sending it out for test knitting. So I'm going to be releasing this in the next few weeks. And if you want to know when that comes out, do sign up to my newsletter. I'll include a link to that in the description box below, because I send out a little email when I have new things coming up, including patterns. And with this one, in the spirit of properly getting into autumn, I've just started another version so I didn't tell you which colours these were. So this is my Mendip DK. The background grey is sheep, which is the natural undyed colour, and then the green is fern. This one I'm knitting in beech, which is this nice browny burgundy sort of, it's got a slight bit of purple to it, but also a slight bit of yellow, which is really pleasing. I've still got some of my provisional cast on here because I use a tubular cast on for my hats, which gives a really lovely finish, and I've got full instructions for that in the pattern because I like to include nice little details for a quality finish, for things like that. And the colour I'm going to be using with it is Fox. So I'll be doing the planty leafy bits in the orange, which I think will be perfect autumnal magic. So I'm really looking forward to this. It's not going to take me very long. It's a really quick knit, and I will expect to have that finished probably within a few days. I do have another project that I'm working on, which I can't show you because it's a secret, but you will see, I'd say, in a couple of months. And the other thing that I can show you is my Meltemi socks. I've shown these quite a few times because I've been working on them since about July. And I finally got past the heel, which I am pleased by, because usually once I get past the heel, that's me on the home run. And I'll be working on them a lot more to try and get them finished so that they will be ready to make my feet nice and toasty when I need them. I often find heels to be a little bit of a hang-up, so when I'm knitting the foot, like up to about here, I'm fine. But then I start to get hesitant about when I'm going to need to start the heel, and so I slow down and then I put them down and I do other things. And it would make sense for me to just do an afterthought heel, but I like to use up the entire skein of yarn and just make the socks, the leg of the socks, as long as is required to do so. Which means that an afterthought heel would mean I would have to guess how much I'm going to need for the heel, and so I tend not to do that. However, I do have a pair of socks planned where I don't quite have enough for a decent length sock, so I'm probably going to do contrast heels and toes and possibly cuffs. And so with that, because I'll be using a separate yarn, I can just knit the whole thing without the heel and then try an afterthought heel, because it is something I've been meaning to do for a while. Yes, so then new things in the shop this month. Sorry, I've dropped one of my yarns. There we go. I released the Waterhouse Collection, which is this little series of 5 yarns here. They are 5 limited edition colourways based on paintings by J.W. Waterhouse, who is one of my favourite artists. He was around the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century. Was friends with a lot of the Pre-Raphaelites, but wasn't actually one of them, even though he's often classed as a Pre-Raphaelite. And yes, so the paintings I based them on are the Danaid, which has lots of colours in it, but averages out fairly muted. It's really interesting. I have a swatch here, which I just did in various stitch patterns. I don't know if that's going to focus there for you. But it just shows how the colours work up, and also shows the kind of fabric that you get. It's got some structure to it. It's a little bit of drape because I've used a slightly loose gauge here, but it's not floppy. It's got spring and bounce to it, which is really fun. So yes, that one is the Danaid. Then we've got Circe Invidiosa, which is this amazing turquoisey green with little bits of brown. The Sorceress, which is all lovely toasty sepia and cinnamon and spicy colours. Ophelia, mostly sort of sludgy green shades, with some of the natural white showing through, and each skein has a little splash of red and chestnut. And if you look up the paintings, I'll include links to them in the description box. It's really fun just to see like which bits of the paintings I've included, because that is such a nice little creative exercise for playing with colour for me. And then this one is Penelope and the Suitors. So the response to these has been really positive, and there there are just a few skeins left of each colour. So if you do like the look of any of them, they'd make a perfect autumn project. So yeah, I'm enjoying these. And so next up, I am going to show you how I dye with woad. I'm out in the garden and I'm hoping you're going to be able to hear okay. There is a bit of background noise, but I'm hoping it's not going to be too much of an issue. I'm going to do a little bit of woad dyeing. In the last episode I showed a couple of skeins that I dyed with woad, one with the salt extraction method and one using the leftover woad from the salt extraction, just using my standard method. Today I'm going to do a salt extraction again, but this time I'm going to be doing it on already dyed yarn. So this is dyed with calendula. It's an exhaust bath, so it's quite pale. It's a sort of cool pale yellow. It's a very nice colour, but it's not a particularly interesting one, and I'm going to try overdying it with woad, which will hopefully give a really nice fresh green, and we'll see if that's actually the case. So this will be my last woad harvest of this year, I think, because at this stage apparently the plants stop giving colour, and also I don't want to be taking more leaves after I've taken this lot, because the plants will need energy for next year when hopefully they will produce seed, and then I'll be able to plant more. I still have some seed left from this year, so I'm going to be planting those in spring to get first year plants for next year's harvest as well. So hopefully it'll be woad all over the place. So I have just over 100 grams of woad leaves here. I've given them a quick rinse just to get off any bits of mud and things from the garden. So I've got 100 grams roughly and 150 grams of wool, which means I won't get a particularly strong colour, but because the yarn is already dyed, I'm not too worried about that, because I'm mostly just looking for it to tint the existing colour and shift it towards green. So I'm just tearing up the leaves here. And the more I tear them up, the more juice will be released. Already as I'm tearing them up, there's a bit of green showing on my hands. So the dye that is extracted starts off green, and then as it oxidizes on the fibre, it shifts towards a turquoisey blue, which is just a fascinating process. It's so interesting, and it is sort of part of why I wanted to do a video as well as writing the blog post. But of course here it'll be interesting to see the shift on the yellow yarn. Just want to tear these into nice small pieces so we can get the dye out from as much of the leaves as possible. Right, you can see lots of nice green goo on my hands there. Now I'm going to pour the salt over them. I'm just using standard table salt, and I don't measure, I just put a nice amount to sort of cover the surface of the woad there. Mix it up. And now if I squeeze, you can see all of that green foam coming out, which is our dye. And it's so satisfying just to give it a really good squish. Something wonderfully fun and childish about just playing around with goo. Righty-ho, I reckon we're ready to start putting some yarn in there. So what I'm going to do is, the yarn is already wet, which will help the dye take up into the fibres. It's already, because it's already been dyed, it has already been mordanted as well. Apparently with woad you shouldn't need to mordant the fibre first, but I can be a bit overkill with mordanting, just because I want my colours to stay and I'm quite keen to make that happen. So I'm going to put them in one skein at a time. And this will mean I get lots of leafy bits in my yarn, but I'm okay with that because I'm only doing a small quantity and they will shake out fairly easily once I wash them. Now with this process, it would be possible to felt the yarn. So if you're trying this, you always want to apply pressure but not friction. So I'm just squeezing, and you want to try and avoid dragging strands of yarn over other parts of yarn. And if I don't get an entirely even colour on this, I won't mind, because I prefer slightly variegated yarns. I find them more interesting, and the sort of the difference between hand-dyed yarns and commercially dyed ones. Obviously it's possible to get a completely even finish from a hand-dyed yarn, but I like little inconsistencies. You can see some of that's beginning to turn really nice and green. I'm just taking big lumps of the leaves and squeezing it into the parts that look like they haven't had much contact. once it seems like I've got a lot of the colour out of these, I'll take the yarn out and then I'll add some more salt, because they sort of dry up a bit and the salt helps extract the moisture from it, which is how the colour comes out. Get all the bits that have escaped. It is good fun to make a mess. And you can see the plant matter that we've got in there has wilted down quite a lot, because a lot of the moisture has been extracted, sort of like when you cook spinach. Again, another sprinkle of salt. And just knead it in, try and break up the clumps. There's slightly less colour coming out than there was before. There's still a good amount of green in there. Right, I think that's about as much colour as I'm getting from those. So what I'm going to do is take these, I'm going to soak them and just in water, and then we'll see how the colour develops. The leftover woad here I will put in boiling water, and I'll dye yarn with that using my usual method with alum and a cream of tartar mordant. Okay, I've got a lot of green in here. Changing my mind. I'm going to squeeze these out in here and then see if I can apply the colour more evenly. So you can see the colour of the yarn there. That's not showing up particularly well. It is a beautiful green. Squeezing like this seems to be doing a fairly nice job of distributing colour along the length of the skein. I'm just going to do that a couple more times, and then I will give the skeins a soak, and then we'll see how they turn out. So once I took the skeins of yarn out of the bowl, I left them with all of the woad dye stock on them, and I hung them up to dry almost completely before rinsing them, just to give the dye a bit more time to bond with the fibres, and then I've hung them up to dry, and they are completely wonderful. I'm so pleased. They are exactly the soft green I was hoping for. Just like it's a really, really pretty colour. If I show you compared with the one that I did before that was just woad on its own, it's this sort of duck egg blue, and then you've got this really nice sort of almost pistachio green, which I am really, really pleased with. So yes, overall very excited about woad, very pleased I have it in the garden, and really looking forward to doing more experiments next year. So yes, and talking of green, a couple of weeks ago I went down to Devon because I have family there, and I got to spend a day with my friend Katie Green of the Green Bean Podcast. We went to visit the garden house together. A few of you mentioned in my last episode how you like that I share the gardens I visit, because I like a bit of inspiration for my not so impressive garden myself. But Katie and I went to a garden fairly near where she lives, which is called the Garden House, rather unimaginatively. But it's utterly beautiful, and we had a really nice time wandering around lichen spotting, because that's what we do. And then went for a little jaunt on Dartmoor, as ought to be expected from Katie. If you've seen her podcasts, she does a lot of walks on Dartmoor. And then we found a tree and climbed a tree and did some knitting there and had a bit of a chat, and it was a lovely afternoon, and the sort of thing I really recommend. So here are some little scenes from that day. Because it's been a couple of months since I last did an update, the garden has changed quite a lot. We've just about doubled the amount of bed space that we're growing things in. So along the left here, and these two beds in the middle, and down on the right. All of that was just grass before. So we've dug those out, and we've got lots more things coming along, so I'll give you a quick look around. Got my nice little collection of pots here. It's mostly herbs. These have changed since the last time. We've planted out what was growing in there before into the herb bed here. So that's mostly herbs with some calendula and things. And it's fairly new, so there's a lot of bare soil. But that will hopefully grow in quite nicely. So these are rosemary I've grown from cutting. That's my madder there coming along nicely. Mint is not doing as well as it should. I think I'm going to cut it back a fair bit. This is quince that I've grown from seed. Mystery bulbs, probably iris, taken from my grandma's garden. More madder here. We've got our chilies here. I have no idea what kind of chilies they are. This is a cotinus, or a smoke bush, which we're going to plant just about there once we've got the squashes harvested. Little trough of spinach and some thyme cuttings I've taken here. Here I got my sort of propagation station. Lots of things from seed and cuttings, and these will go out in the garden when they're ready. More herb cuttings here, so rosemary and thyme. And then this bed, you can sort of see a line here where this bit at the front used to be grass. So this is all fairly bare. We've got plants in here that are just growing in. So we've got lots of the calendula, some rosemary there, some spare beans, broad beans. We've got more broad beans down the end of the garden. So the idea will be that everything towards the house, so towards me from this middle bed here, will be decorative. And then everything beyond that will be vegetables. So at the moment we've still got courgette growing here. These have been nice and productive for us. We've been eating lots of courgettes. Rhubarb's doing nicely. That hollyhock this one here is ridiculous. So this is Verbascum on the left. That's another hollyhock that hasn't done so well. But that is, if I show you where my eye level is, that's about there. The fence is 6 foot high. It's mildly ridiculous. I'd say it's definitely over 8 feet now, probably pushing on 9. So I really like this little bit of border. Lots of sunny, bright colours. They've been really fun. And then this middle bit, we've got some shrubs and things in here. So we've got buddleia there, and a hydrangea over there. And then some lupins and more we've got calendula everywhere. I mean, it's all over the place because it grows so easily and is really nice and sunny coloured. So this will hopefully grow in nicely for next year. Then behind we've got more hollyhocks and foxgloves, which will hopefully look really good next summer. I've got some kale down here. This bit is going eventually. Some of these things on the left will be moved further down the garden to make space for more veg here. We'll dig out this grass here. A couple of rows of broad beans, which are doing nicely. They've been in for a few weeks. This Black-eyed Susan, or Thunbergia alata, is doing astoundingly. We've actually got two in there, so there's the bright orange and then the deeper reddy coloured ones. I think next year we're going to try growing them on sort of obelisks made out of hazel poles. I'm looking for somewhere local I can get hazel poles from. Little area with turf pile and stuff. Bee Hotel has a few residents. This bed is potatoes that we planted fairly recently. They haven't showed up yet. Our creepy sunflower, which is just constantly like staring over at the neighbours. I think it's been knocked over by the cats that use it as a way to run up the fence. I really don't like other people's cats being in my garden. Well, I don't like any cats being in my garden because I don't have pets for quite a few reasons. And here is a fantastic example of my netting not doing its job. So I'm going to be checking all of my turnips for butterfly eggs, because that's a sneaky cabbage white who's got in there, even though we netted this. But if I come down here, can you see in there? No, it's not going to focus because I've got the net in front. We've just got some turnips beginning to come through, so that's nice and exciting. Bad butterfly. And then we've got many beans, a few corns. The corn have done okay, not amazingly. We tried out Three Sisters planting here. So the idea is that you've got the corn and the beans grow up the corn, and the squash at the bottom provides ground cover and prevents weeds. We have had lots of weeds. The beans are growing up things that aren't the corn. And overall, I'd say I'm not super impressed with the setup. I think next time we'll just do space for corn, space for squash, and space for beans, because it's a bit of a hassle getting through everything to harvest things. But we do have lots of nice things coming along. So you can see there, and I don't know if you can see in there, got a couple of squashes. We've got ridiculous numbers of beans. These are Belotti beans. I've got loads of them in there. And more squashes here. And I'm excited for these to ripen. You can see they're a fairly decent size. Another squash here. We've got nasturtium everywhere. They're going to self-seed like crazy. And then lots of nice herbs. We've got marjoram, lemon verbena, a bit of basil, thyme, some chives in there, more thyme, some yarrow. That's a blackthorn, which hopefully at some point will give some sloes. That's a gooseberry bush, which used to be over at the back of the garden by the shed, which we moved because we think it'll be happier here. Got some sorrel here, which I've realised is a perennial, which is exciting. So I'm hoping that'll grow on well. So yeah, that's sort of the garden as it is now. End of September, some things beginning to die back. And I'd say I've got another month or two of interesting things happening in the garden. Good Lord. Children, a couple of houses over, do like to scream. I don't know if you can hear that. But yeah, so that's the garden as it is now. I'm really enjoying it, and I've been loving this summer, and I'm already excited to see what it's going to look like next year. And in the meantime, we've got lots of plans for the veg area at the end of the garden, where we're going to be planting lots of winter crops. So we're going to have onions and garlic and more beans and peas and things in there, so that we can hopefully have a good amount of veg coming through. So yeah. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little snapshot of my month As always, thank you so much for joining me. It's a real pleasure to share what I'm up to, and the fact that there are people who are interested in what I'm doing and want to watch. Thank you so much to everyone who entered the giveaway last month. I picked a lovely winner a couple of weeks ago, and she should have her yarn and pattern now. It was just so delightful to hear all of the things that you like about the podcast. It really cheered me up, and it was just really affirming and wonderful, and thank you to everyone who took the time to enter and comment and say lovely things, because it really means a lot to me that you enjoy the podcast. If you want to keep up with what I'm doing in between podcast episodes, you can sign up to my newsletter, where you'll get all of the updates on exciting releases, plus a monthly little update on what I'm doing in written form. And you can also follow me on Instagram for some behind the scenes chat and snaps on stories and things. And if you do want to support the podcast and help me set aside the time to record, then you can always donate on Ko-fi, which is really appreciated to those of you who have already done so. And not at all obligatory. It is an option for if you want to. But yes, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next month. Bye bye.